Hello and welcome to Horseplayer Happy Hour. This is a first. In the 2 years we've been doing the show, we haven't actually been in the same room. This was created as a virtual deal. It's now an actual deal. We are here live at the Brentwood. I'm your host, Peter Thomas Fornatel. Very excited to be living up to the Happy Hour name with a Brentwood cocktail called Smoke the Hive in hand. I'm very excited to be seated next to, for once, my colleague. We can even cheers.
The proper cheers, too. Yeah.
Matt Bernier, TV's Matt Bernier, here live in Saratoga. Matt, what brings you to town?
Well, we've got a couple things. This was supposed to initially be just a fun little vacation-y trip with me and the wife, and for a few different reasons got called to pinch hit for Saturday's NBC show. So I think NBCSN at 6 o'clock. So we'll go over the two grade ones, and I was going to be here anyway. So might as well enjoy it.
Might as well. We'll do a little bit of a working vacation.
Yeah, why not?
We're used to a lot of those. Craig, I have an idea. I think if you flip the boxes where Matt and I are, we'll be looking at each other on screen when we talk. I think, does that work better? That's way better. Yeah, good stuff. Good producing on the fly there from DJ Unstable himself. So this is Horseplayer Happy Hour. We've been doing these shows for about 20 weeks now. We've got about 4 more of these shows to go. I'll double check that and give you the number. But what we're here to do is not only to have a regular feeder. I'm going to start leading with that. It's a regular feeder into Saturday's Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge qualifier. That's one of the things that we're doing here. But it's also a lot more than that, because we're an interconnected series of contests that's going to award 2 Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge seats. And I'll let you, Matt, talk about the 2 ways that those seats, which, by the way, are added to the prize pool at no extra cost to players, are going to be distributed.
Yeah, we're getting down to the bitter end for the regular season anyway. Whoever has accumulated the most points throughout the regular season, they're going to win themselves a full $10,000 BCBC seat for November's contest out of Del Mar, or wherever you end up playing it remotely. But then also, if you qualify for what we've kind of deemed the postseason, you end up getting yourself into a contest that spans the course of a few weeks, and we're going to slowly whittle it down. Eventually, we get to a final table situation. If you emerge from the final table with the most points, you also gain a $10,000 BCBC seat. So there are many opportunities. You brought up the 2 seats that have basically just been, they're here. This is freebie for you. But then you also, and again, as we always forget about it, but you brought it up earlier at the top. So we've finally figured it out however many weeks it's been. That you're also playing for a qualifier for this coming weekend as well. So, I mean, there's so many different things that you can do. I think this is just a good opportunity for us to, shake up contests a little bit. I give credit to also Kentucky Downs.
Yes.
The FanDuel meet at Kentucky Downs. That's a fascinating way that they're laying out their series of events coming up for the meet that starts on Sunday afternoon, I believe. So, I think contests, we all love contests, and it's always nice when you can throw a little bit of a new wrinkle in there.
A little innovation. And the other element of it is, this is all to benefit Thoroughbred Aftercare. $20 gets you a ticket in one of these games. Now, it's already started. If you're just tuning in and saying, what's this about? You will be able to participate next Thursday. Now, I haven't looked ahead to what's running next Thursday. There's not going to be any NYRA. We'll have to figure out what our contest schedule is going to be.
Kentucky Downs might be running.
I think that is one of their days, which would be great. But the house cup, as it were, this $20 goes to Thoroughbred Aftercare. And speaking of that, there's another contest on Saturday, the Cares contest. That's a charity in California run by our friends at Little Red Feather, also supporting Aftercare. That's a $500 event. Folks looking to get involved in that, you can go to inthemoneypodcast.com/LRF, get the details on that $500 Saturday Del Mar or online one. And then you mentioned this incredibly cool Kentucky Downs Turf Handicapping Championship. 3 different contests, 2 days each. And at the end, they're going to crown a turf handicapping champion. How cool is that?
And I love the way that they have positioned everything as well. If you want all the details on that FanDuel meet at Kentucky Downs, I mentioned it at the top of my show on Monday. Chopped up Kentucky Downs for about 10 or 12 minutes, talking about the contest, talking about all the other things that you really need to know about the upcoming meet. And I just think, again, it's really, there are some similarities between the way that the happy hour is structured and the Kentucky Downs series of events, because it is aggregate.
Yep.
There is something to the idea of consistency and consistently being involved, as opposed to just having that heater of a day when you go out there and you out sprint the field and you never look back. Well, you got to be good over the course of the 3 2-day events. So I think it's really cool. And again, I think everyone deserves a tip of the cap, especially a place like Kentucky now, is for thinking a little outside the box. I mean, you've got a bit of a different meet, and we've talked about all the details and they're off at Saratoga in their 8th race. I think they deserve kudos for thinking a little bit uniquely.
No doubt. Getting outside the box and doing things that reward consistency and help horse players. That's what it's all about. We did not get a chance to talk about this race, but I did. I had some interest in the 10.
I did too.
235. Was that your horse as well? I wonder what. Let's take a look, see if we can see what price we got in the end on this runner. I just thought we'd get a very good trip. I thought there would be pace. I thought would be maybe a little bit closer than this, but we'll see. Maybe they're really going out there. Well, 23-4 for that opening quarter, but curious to see how they ended up betting this one. Any other numbers you were particularly interested in?
Well, I thought a lot of these horses in here had intriguing angles, but some of them I wasn't convinced about distance. So a horse like Glory Road, I wasn't totally convinced that the distance would work to this one's advantage. Musical America, every time that we've gone 2 turns, seemingly we've lost ground at the very end. That was one of the things about the outside runner that I was encouraged by, that I didn't think the distance would get a beat. It's just a matter of, did he still have it? That run from Pimlico most recently, I didn't think it was as bad as the running line looks, in a little tight early on,
Yep.
chased wide throughout, made a bit of a middle move as well.
Against the flow, too.
Yeah, hopefully, now to be fair, I wouldn't have touched the 3-1.
Okay, yeah, that's a little short.
A little short for me, so even if the horse wins, great. Musical America, I'll be fascinated to see. This is a horse I was very dubious about the distance.
Parents here. Oh, yeah, stick your head right in there. Say hi to the people. Parents visiting. All right, we're turning in. Enjoy that lemonade, parent. They make grade 1 lemonade here at the Brentwood as well. That's the 10 trying to finish out there in the center of the track. But is the speed of the 4 Candy Tycoon going to come back? Is the 8 going to end up being the victor? Looks like a nice battle between the 4 and the 8 in the lane. That will go to probably too close to call, but maybe just the 8.
Maybe. I don't know. It's close. I'll tell you what. I'm sure some of the more let's say, economic pick 6 players, because there was a giant carryover coming into this afternoon, if I'm correct, or was that yesterday?
There was a big carryover yesterday.
I don't even know what day it is.
You don't. You lost track.
I've been watching a lot of Daniel Tiger over the past 24 hours. I don't know how familiar you are.
I know Daniel Tiger. When Perrin was here, you should have talked about Daniel Tiger.
Daniel Tiger. We played with a lot of Play-Doh. We saw the nieces and nephew over the past 24 hours or so. So I've been way out of the loop as far as the racing until we got up here this afternoon.
You missed the day somewhere.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. So sorry. Totally disregard what I was talking about.
The carryover. But Mo Gotcha, was that the horse that got it done? Let's go back and look. This horse was a healthy price on the morning line. Not sure what we ended up with in actuality here. But I always like to go back when it's a horse that pays a price of some kind that I didn't have and go back and see if there's anything we missed when we do that exercise with Mo Gotcha. What do we find?
I mean, a horse who is in good form. You go through the last 3 running lines. You've got 2 victories and a 4th beaten 3/4 of a length. One of those actually came on turf as well. I tell you what, I'm going to butcher his name. I apologize. Kentermachi.
Yeah, that's
close enough.
I think they might say Kentermachi, but that's super close.
I think he does a really, really good job, especially with claiming types, where what the barn may not be churning out graded stakes types, but I think they're very shrewd at what they end up picking up from a claiming standpoint and then where they spot them. And I think every circuit has those types of trainers that are really good. They've got an eye, and I'm not talking about folks that are hitting that 30% off the claim. I'm talking about the barns that they're in that 12 to 14% range overall. And you know what? This is a horse they took for 40 last out, stretched out in distance. Unfortunately, didn't get all the money today. Lost the photo. Finished second at 12-1. But a pretty good position and a good placement. They're going to collect a nice check here.
It was the far side. I was wrong with my. This is why I'm not a race caller. Favorite Candy Tycoon gets it done. I still think that exercise is good on any horse that outruns its odds. Doesn't necessarily have to be a winner. But that was interesting. I thought I wasn't sure of the situation Candy Tycoon was going to get at the short price with the pace in there, but under a canny ride gets the job done and just hangs on and wins that photo to kick things off on the live stream portion of Horseplayer Happy Hour. We'll do a leaderboard update as soon as this becomes official.
Do you have, when you look at a horse like Candy Tycoon, I can understand why he was favored 7-5. Doesn't that seem a little aggressive?
It's aggressive. I didn't price up the whole race, and the stewards are looking at this play.
Okay.
So we'll have to see. The 4's there coming out a little bit into the 7. Going left-handed, coming out into the 7. But you never know what they're going to do here. But there's definitely some contact, and they will look at this. I said 7 coming on to the 8, the horse that finished second. Yeah, I mean, it's when there's not much in it like that, and you see contact. It seems like it was initiated by one horse. There's a definite possibility for things to happen. Let us know in the comments what you think is going to happen with this DQ, with this potential DQ. The crypto prescription says take him down, but that might be money talk. We'll give shout outs too. You can ask us questions. You can tell us who you like these races. You can tell you what you think of this inquiry, or just say hi. So we've got Marcos, we've got Pradit, we've got Wayne. What is Wayne saying? One for Pete. When he keeps saying this lad is one of the top pro punters in England, does he know the best? How do I know the best gamblers from England? From being around race courses over there. I used to live over there. I keep a little poll. I've got my sources. It's not unlike the NCAA top 10 list. Correct. We keep it. Dub. He might move up and down, but he always stays in the top 10. And Wayne High back from England. Pretty funny. There's some amusing things in the comments already. They're definitely taking a long look at this. They're taking it seriously. We'll end up seeing what they do here in a minute. What else are we going to talk about in the show? We'll look ahead to the Grade 1s on Saturday, both Breeders' Cup win and you're in races. We'll probably talk more generally about the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge, which we just had the NHC last weekend. The other true major in contest is the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge. Sort of the mythical money versus the live money on display skills in those two events. But boy, was that a wild finish to the NHC. I don't know how closely you were paying attention, but what a storyline having Justin Mustari from the World Horseplayers Tour, of which we were both a part, come and become the youngest champion at the National Horseplayers Championship. Funny enough, against the previous youngest champion, Jose Arias, defending his title, as it were, trying to thwart the young gun. In the end, they both played great, and Justin just got the spoils there at the end.
And correct me if I'm wrong, was it a full cap horse, or was it I know it was a north of 15-1.
Yeah, I think the horse was 15 or 20-1. I don't know if it was a full cap I don't know what happened with the place, but it was it was a bold play.
Yeah, and I think I read the quote, and I don't know if he had said it to his father, but how many times am I going to have a shot at $750,000? And I appreciate that. And you want to talk about someone who's thinking from a value standpoint, I get it. It may be, I say only, an 18 or 19-1 shot or whatever it may have been. No, a lot more than that. A lot bigger than that in the grand scheme of things. And look, that takes some gumption to be able to go and make a move like that. So good on Justin, 27 years old, and he's now the youngest. 26. I don't want to look at this point. You don't want to be robbing those young years. 26 years old, and now the NHC champion. I mean, that's impressive.
When you walked in that ballroom for the first time, be honest. How many years did you think it would take before there was an NHC champion younger than yourself? If you were to guess.
Well, and I don't want to not champion. Keep in mind, younger than me. I mean. So at the time when I was there playing, I was 23 or 24, and then now I'm 32. I mean, I think Jose is pretty close to my age. I don't think he's much older.
No, he's maybe 36.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I mean, I can't say honestly that I would have thought this was a likely scenario. Just purely on math. I mean, how many folks in that late 20 or even mid 20 range to early 30 are there in the NHC year after year? But to be fair, it seems like that number continues to grow.
Yeah, well, that's the great thing about it, and what I think we're hoping to accomplish with this more creativity.
DQ.
They take them down, so I was prescient giving the winner's case on Mo Gotcha. it'll be 8-4. That's a big shakeup in any tournament. Taking the 7-5 favorite out and putting the 12-1 on top. I mean, it makes sense to me when there's that little in it. It did seem like there was contact, and it seemed like it was precipitated by Candy Tycoon. So I'm not surprised. And we've got Wayne seems very excited.
Well, Wayne must be the one who was chirping on the YouTube channel for my show this week, because I saw so much about Gamine and how much he's got. Good on you, Wayne. I don't need it on every comment. Good on you, but we don't need it the entirety of it.
We'll see too. I mean, the thing about Gamine with a future bet, not to knock Gamine, but she's clearly had many issues.
Oh, for sure.
And having new issues with that shoe information that we had going in the last race. Obviously, it did affect her, if she stays together, she's going to be a massive favorite. But I would be careful. I'm like being too confident about that or really anything when it comes to horse racing. It's a game that will humble you.
Well, and I think to your point, and when we find out about the aluminum shoe or the aluminum pad, however you want to phrase it, and you go back and look at some of her recent runs, I'm not including the Churchill Downs race because she stumbled out of the gate badly. It was a miracle that she even made the front in that spot after that. But she has shown a penchant for sort of, I'm not going to go all out and say she's been lugging out, but you almost see her kind of boring out a little bit off the turn. She's late with her lead changes, and early in her career, that really didn't seem like it was a thing. So you have at least put together a case, if you don't love her, to say, look, her feet aren't, maybe they're not bad, but they're certainly not ideal. And maybe that's enough for you to take a shot against. At a very, very short price.
It's not crazy to me at all when it's clear that one has been held together with, stucco and tape.
You hate to say it that way.
At the same time, she's probably done enough. And if she's not,
I would think they'd retire. Yeah, if she was really off. But and now, also to be fair, and I said it last week on the ABR show, that there is something to be said, even if that's the case, about a horse who she continues to catch paceless races. And I don't know if she scares. Oh, excuse me. Bless you. Sorry. I don't know if she scares away the other speed types, but without any other speed in there, she is so talented that tactical advantage may not be enough for anyone to overcome. I don't care how good you are. Lake Avenue ran a bang-up race the other day, and she still didn't get within 2 or 3 lengths.
She really ran well.
Go ahead.
I don't know where this is coming from. I'm sneezing up a star. I don't have sneezed on air never in 7 years of broadcasting, and now I'm having a moment here, the pollen or something here. Yes, Mark says bless you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Let's take a look at this leaderboard real quick. I think it means I need another drink. Matt Bernier in the money's own, fresh back from a trip out to the NHC. He's in first place now with 83. We've got Steve Dudenoff. We've got Terry Crump, Don Diller, Don Marquardt, Ken Kasowich, Thomas Nanny, Scott McGovern, Bruce Meyer, who's up there on the tour leaderboard as well, Mark Wildowski, Sean O'Malley, David Browning. There's that man again, looking in good position. How many did we get total today? About 140?
142.
Okay, so yeah, David in position to move on to Saturday play, if nothing else. Dennis Madsen and Julie Laboyko currently in those top 4. That will give Eric Kurzal's name as well to round out the top 15 as we head into these final 2 races of the day in this edition of Horseplayer Happy Hour. I'm going to run and grab a tissue and see if I can get over whatever's bothering me here, so I don't do that again.
No problem.
Chat to the people for a minute.
2760 from Mo Gotcha, wrapping that thing up 970 to place. That's why you saw a fair amount of fluctuation there on the leaderboard. And we bring up David Browning's name. I mean, again, you still have a few weeks left in the regular season, so this thing's far from a done deal. But at the same time, a few points, even if he can't end up with a top 5 finish this afternoon or whatever it may be, run inside the top 10. A few more points is going to go a long way. Just pad that lead to potentially lock up the $10,000 BCBC seat for the regular season. But again, as we've continued to talk about, you don't just have to be playing for the regular season point total. The top 2 each week will move on to the postseason and automatically punch their ticket into that tournament. So even if you feel like you're sort of out of range for finishing the top, 2 or 3, or especially for the $10,000 BCBC seat, there's still every reason to get involved, because if you're running the exacta every week, you punch your ticket to the postseason. So I think it's definitely one of those things that that was my only fear, was that people would look at it and go, oh, well, so-and-so, and this was before, we kind of talked about every possible scenario before we landed on these as the rules.
Yeah.
The fear was, oh, somebody's so far ahead, what's the point? Well, the point is you still you can get yourself in a pretty good position as far as the playoffs go. And keep in mind, the playoffs, is it 2 or 3 entries that you can have?
It's tricky the way we did it. If you win in through the exacta, you can get up to 3.
Right.
But if you have 2, or even if you have 1, those extra spots, those final 30, are going to go to the top points. People who didn't hit the exacta.
Gotcha.
Just as a further way to reward consistency, which I'm very happy with.
Well, for sure.
But I think a lot of people will end up probably with 2 and would have been in position to get 3. But the way we rejiggered it, we want to reward that consistency.
You needed the incentive to continue to show up and also perform, as opposed to just show up. And again, I've been not guilty of it. You catch fire where you get out there and you have a day and you're just, seeing red. And the next thing you know, you've got 140 points or whatever it is in whatever contest you're playing. But there is something to be said about the kind of performances. And I'm going to just use his name. I mean, David Brown, there's a reason he's at the top of the list. This entire season, it feels like, how many weeks have we not mentioned his name? You can probably count him on one hand. You know what I mean? So he just shows up and has been very, very impressive. And I don't want it to sound like all we do is continue to pat him on the back, but this has been a hell of a run.
It's been great. And it's so great to see somebody. That's another reason why an event like the NHC or the BCBC, they're economically weighted against the young.
Yeah.
Because they reward, and this it is what it is. I'm not saying this is a bad thing. It is what it is. But they're weighted towards people who have the time and the money to play in a lot of qualifiers or travel around or treat $40,000 like it's Monopoly money. There's not a lot of 26-year-olds who are in the financial position to do that. And one of the things I love about the way we've set this up, and one of the reasons I hope it's going to continue and grow and thrive, and we come up with other ways, a la the World Series of Poker. I mean, to me, one of the things that's the genius of the World Series of Poker is it's live bankroll, but it's not real money.
Yeah.
You think if Moneymaker can walk away from that table with Sammy Farha, he can make that bluff? No, he's going home with it. He's comparatively rich. To really set it up where you can have the pro against the Joe, and I mean that in the nicest way possible. You need to have it. You need to have them be able to play correctly without that money being of consequence. And David Browning, he said it himself. He's loves seeing all the big tournament names up in this tournament and what's going on here. And he plays in the big money tournaments when he can qualify into them. But what a way to level the playing field and bring so many other people in to be able to knock heads with the creme de la creme of the contest world. It's an idea with legs.
Well, and I think the other part of it too, thank you very much, is to your point, it allows the folks who, even if you have the ability to go through and buy your way into some of these events, it still affords the folks who are reluctant to do that the opportunity to run with some of the names that are always at the top of these leaderboards. And again, you can go on to horseplayers.com or horsetourneys.com. Some of these names that you see in these big buy-ins or whatever it may be, many of them have the ability to buy their way in, but there's something to be said about a way to get in without having to put that much up front. And I think that's the beauty of what these feeders on whatever website it is, our friends at ExpressBet, they've laid out those sort of contests. I know we have a big event coming up at Canterbury Downs in just a few weeks' time.
Yes,
not even
another big one.
Yeah, I mean, but the idea you can get in, or you have been able to get in for a considerably smaller amount than just straight up buying in, and I think that gives sort of, I hate to say the little guy. I don't like the way that sounds, but folks,
bankroll conscious player
for sure.
There are bankroll conscious players, and there are people for whom it's funny money.
My wife's outside. If I told her that I was buying into a $3,000 event, she would go get out. Like, there's no way that would work. But if I say, hey, look, I like last year with the BCBC, I won in for $56. Done.
Yeah,
done.
That's a great point.
She's cool with that. She goes, can you cash out right now? I go, no, that's not how that works. That's not how that works. But
that's very funny. So Matthew says something interesting that I hadn't heard, that apparently Gamine had run with the shoe before, but it was only listed for the first time in the equipment. That I don't know if that's true or not. It may be true. But just from looking at Gamine's running lines and, the overages that she's had, she's obviously one that's taken a lot of doing to get together. So it doesn't change my opinion at all, even if it's correct.
And to your point, I believe the overages were lidocaine, which it's pain. It's pain, and she is a prime example. And I know not everyone, but I know there are a handful of folks that say, lead changes, enough of that stuff, or whatever else it may be. There's a reason that you go back and watch the way horses run, and you can compare and contrast that they've done it in the past to the way that they're doing it now. And it can be sort of I don't want to say an omen, but it can kind of give you a little insight into how they're actually feeling. And you can then use that to your advantage. This is a game where you're trying to find any kind of edge you possibly can. And in a day and age where data is readily available and folks have all sorts of different sophisticated ways of putting things together, if you can watch some tape and say, you know what, she got it done this time around, but next time out against better horses perhaps with some pace early on going against her at a short price, I have every reason to go against. I think I'm hopeful. Not just this, but anything that we do, I think, as a whole, I would say in the money media as a whole, just think a little more outside the box as opposed to just, this is the fastest horse they're going to win. There's more to it than that.
Yeah, for sure. And the great thing is I love the idea of an angle that smart people are going to tell me I'm nuts for.
Correct.
Because that means maybe you can actually get an edge as opposed to we're all looking at the same figures in the form.
I brought this up on Twitter the other day. I'm going through, again, I was up here last weekend, got to see all the fantastic racing. That war between Jackie's Warrior? Jackie's Warrior, Life is Good. It's been a few days.
Life is
Daniel
good. Tiger has not done anything good for your brain.
That little jingle from Daniel Tiger.
It's pretty cute.
All that's going through my head now. I just threw out there. I said, well, I didn't have a kid. Do you get to a certain point where you've had so many tough races that at some point there's a regression? And again, I think many people are going to look at it and say, until there's a reason to expect one, don't. But there's the gambling part of me that says right now, I mean, he is the horse to beat in the sprint division. There are other really talented sprinters. Maybe none of them are as good as Jackie's Warrior, but you need to just look for anything that could possibly give you an inkling that maybe you're not going to sustain this kind of run. And maybe it's naive for me to think that way. I love the horse. I've done a 180 on him. I think these past two races have been unbelievable.
This race was sick.
And in a weird way, I said to Dan Torchman from ABR, I said, I actually think I like Life is Good even more coming out of this race.
Oh, totally agree.
And we can get into that more. But I think you're looking for anything, long-winded way of saying anything that you think you can take advantage of going forward, you're supposed to.
Yeah, and when you can get those things, you're looking at signal that other people aren't getting, whether it's looking at horses in the paddock or paying extra attention to lead changes or equipment change, whatever, trainer stats, like whatever the thing is that you're doing that other people aren't doing. I mean, these days, I look at so many races. I'm very bread and butter, and that can work if you're really disciplined. I mean, it's even trips these days everybody's looking at. I mean, I like to think I can get an edge sometimes because I don't think people go to the next level in terms of like designing races and looking at internal pace matchups and especially late pace. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I still think bread and butter can get you pretty far, but I would encourage you, the more smart people tell you you're crazy, the more you should look at that thing. We were having a good conversation here, so we'll be here again at the Brentwood Saturday. Folks are around. Come join us live. You'll sit right outside on the lovely patio where Jenna and Perrin are currently having a lovely conversation. This is about the longest Perrin's gone not watching a screen in about 2 weeks, so this is a big win for me. But you can sit out there. We're gonna have free bagels. We got 2-for-1 Bloody Marys, Toma Bloody Mary mix, Albany Distilling vodka. It's gonna be great. Come join us. But when Spencer was here last week, this is not a new concept, but I like the way we talked about it, and the idea of talking about condition. So condition, sometimes people call it form. I'm liking much more calling it condition because form means other things in horse racing. Form, like the form of a race, whatever. But like condition, which direction is a horse going to go relative to itself? Mm-hmm. So Jackie's Warrior, in terms of condition, I'm not going to say his arrow's pointing down, but it ain't pointing any more than in the middle, I think, after all these big efforts. I mean, I know he's a 3-year-old. Maybe you could say based on that, it's pointing a little up. But I feel like I'm just going to rate him exactly where he is. And you look at Life is Good.
Exactly.
And that condition arrow,
straight out.
He can't not run better next time. Off the layoff, with that searching pace, with the questionable ride. We'll talk about that in a minute. And maybe Mike Maloney says maybe on a little bit the worst part of the track as well. This is a horse that's going to explode. Unfortunately, we're not going to get a rematch, I don't think, given the disparate, the different goals at the end of the season. I'm assuming, has it been stated it's going to be Dirt Mile for Life is Good?
I haven't seen.
But it's just logical, right?
I'm holding out hope that they're actually thinking bigger. Because
classic.
Yeah, based on that run. And I think that was the thing that I was most taken by. As awesome as the battle back from Jackie on the inside was, for Life is Good to outfoot him. And it's not like Jackie's Warrior was just, okay, we're going to take back. Like, Joel's pushing along.
He was running.
And Life is Good has just gone right by him.
Yeah.
He opened, whenever he opened up 2.5 or whatever it was on the turn, I said, holy smokes, this horse is something else. And For him to outfoot Jackie's Warrior at Jackie's Warrior's game, when Life is Good to me is really, truly a two-turn horse. That speaks volumes. That reminds me, please don't take this the wrong way.
Don't add him, folks.
It makes me think of an American Pharaoh type. But you know what? He's really a route horse, but he can beat you sprinting at your own game. It makes me think of an Uncle Mo. Now, Uncle Mo was not a 1.25 mile horse, but I think at push comes to shove, I think he was 1.16 miles, maybe 1.8 miles.
I think if he'd raced as an older horse, based on how he continued to develop physically at stud, he would have gotten there if he stayed in training. But I agree, as a 3-year-old.
This race reminded me so much. No, it was not an apples-to-apples comparison with the way the races played out. It reminded me so much of Uncle Mo's return in the King's Bishop.
1,000%.
He got beat by Caleb's Posse, who went on to win the Dirt Mile, who's a legitimately good Grade 1 horse, who probably still gets lost in the shuffle, which is unfair. And he also ran a bang-up Met Mile the following year. He lost to Shackelford.
Very good horse.
But just on pure talent alone, Uncle Mo was able to go and run with him and push him to the very, very bitter end. I need to know, and who knows? I don't know if I'm going to have to talk to Todd this weekend or not. I would love to know, and I won't ask him because he's got other important horses running. What is the next step for Life is Good? Because in my head, initially, the thought is, well, Pennsylvania Derby, 2-turn, 1.8 miles, 3-year-olds. But you may get Hot Rod Charlie in there. Do you really need to go hammer and tongue for back-to-back races? And then, do you go out to Santa Anita for the Awesome again, but then you got to ship him back here and then back out to Del Mar? I threw out the Woodward. Woodward's a 1-turn 1.8 miles. Now, granted, it's not 2. I think he's a proper 2-turn horse. But I think that race might be a little bit on the light side. I mean, I can't imagine you're going to get many top upper echelon runners using that as a prep to the Breeders' Cup Classic now. And then the reason that I bring up Life is Good, I think he's got the kind of gas that can go with Nick's Go early. And now if you add in Medina Spirit, well, I'm not totally convinced he's that fast, but he's fast enough to at least keep things honest.
Push things along a little. It's his only chance of winning.
Race that I don't want to say just been like, well, who on earth is going to run with Nick's Go? Let's say you get both of those horses. All of a sudden, I think it becomes a much more compelling race.
As a fan, I would love to see Life is Good go that way. I just worry it's going to be a Liam's Map situation. Where
Totally
the horse
possible.
can belong in that, and then they're like, we want to race against this gorilla, or do we want to beat this field? And we're going to be super valuable either way as a stallion, so let's do this easier thing.
I think it's totally reasonable.
But I hope I'm wrong.
I just think it would be one of those, and there are some horses, and we'll talk about the Jockey Club coming up. I mean, that to me, I think at face value, everyone just immediately, and I've seen so many people bring up, short field. I get it. You're not going to get a 14-horse field, and maybe from a betting standpoint, it's this, that, or the other. It's still a really compelling race because you've got, I'm going to call it 3, maybe 4 horses. And I said it last week, and I'm going to continue to say it right up through the Breeders' Cup. Now is the time that you need to prove, do you belong in this group, or do you need to reassess and take a step back and say, okay, look in the mirror. What are we actually? So this Jockey Club Gold Cup, Forza Diora, you've got an opportunity to prove. Are you actually a big boy in the Classic division? Happy Saver. Was it the wet track that got you beat in the Suburban, or did you just not improve as a 4-year-old? You got an opportunity to prove it here one way or the other. Max Player. Was it the wet track that moved you way up, or are you just a rapidly improving 4-year-old? I think there are at least, and Night Ops, we'll talk about the race in a bit, but I at least think we're at a point now where you've got some horses that maybe when you first hear them, you go, that's not a Classic horse. Don't be so fast to just dismiss them.
Horses can get very good late 3-year, late 4-year-old year. Changes can happen, especially as infrequently as they run nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
It can be harder to get a line on that form and that improvement, especially when you throw weather into the mix. I think it's an interesting little race. I agree. We'll get to that in the next segment. Let's give some shout outs and do some questions. Dorothy says hi. We say hi back. Stu Slagle, great to hear him involved. What would you set the over-under on the number of $100 plus winners at the upcoming Kentucky Downs meet? That is a great question. And you would, of course, want to look at some historical data. It's only 6 days, 2.5. I mean,
I'll tell you what, that is a track that is known to fire out some numbers.
Yeah.
I think 2.5 for a 6-day meet is, I think the gambling, if I was taking action on it, which is frowned upon. Don't do that. But
don't try this at home, kids.
I would say 1.5.
Okay.
Because I don't know that you'd get enough action.
Yeah.
On the over.
That might be right. That might be right. Though. Yeah. I guess we'd have to see how people bet. What do you think, Stu? You're a data guy. You probably look. He probably knows the answer, and he's just testing us. And now he's going to rub it in our face. But let us know what you think. Chess did not like the takedown. I mean, I didn't study it, but upon seeing it, I immediately thought it was live to come down. Again, when one horse is a little bit more responsible, one horse is more responsible than the other horse for the contact, and you get that, you have that little in it. It's not like the horse then like zipped away by 2. Right. It's hard to say that. I mean, it probably cost the horse a race. So I mean, in that sense, I get it. But reasonable people can disagree. Chess. Wayne is sharing us more tickets. He seems to like Jackie's Warrior and Essential Quality. We like all those things as well. Mark has a suggestion about contests, and this is something that we've thought about a lot, making the prize structures less top-heavy. Yeah, I mean, I'm in favor of that. We did that with the World Horseplayer Tour. Yep. And I do think it makes sense, especially, to me, in an event like the NHC, it makes a whole lot of sense because people play all year and they spend a lot of money, and it's really hard to make it back because the money is so at the top. I really agree. I mean, in the NHC, I would prefer to see it's gotten better over the years. It was worse before, but I do think more money getting paid out to the top 10%, and the difference between scoring out for $750 or $500. Like I take that 500 is great, and then you take that 250 and spread it around. There are those that believe that having those outsized finishes, the outsized rewards for the top prize is like good marketing. But I kind of like the idea of trying to capture that through the bonus structure and maybe get a little bit more money back to the rank and file. Where do you stand on that?
Yeah, I mean, more and more time goes by, and maybe it just has to do with getting older. I do look at it and go, what is the purpose of having something be so top heavy? Because if you can then afford, let's say I'm just throwing round numbers out there. You have 10 people that are going to get paid, and the first position gets paid out very much like a horse race, 60%. You get 600,000, and then it drops down from there. Well, what's wrong with that all of a sudden being 400, and then kind of divvying up things a little bit more equitably, if that makes sense, just chopping them up, because you still have accomplished something for being there in the first place. If it's an ego-driven piece, then I think we're looking at it the wrong way. I think you do get to a certain point and say, I would rather many people get money that could potentially be a game changer for them personally.
Yes.
And just, I like to win just as anyone. And yeah, it's a bragging contest. I like to sit there and go, I had this, you didn't. Haha. But I also, that's genuine. That's me with my friends. And we chop up the money a little bit more proportionally. I think of fantasy football, I mean, in that respect. So I think things should be a little more even. And, it's an accomplishment just to get there in the first place.
I have another point to make about this live bankroll versus mythical, but we're going to talk about this race because it's post time at Saratoga. And I loved how you said that about I had the winner and you didn't. That reminds me of my great friend and mentor. We used to work together down the block here, Harvey Pack. That was one of his big things. That was worth more than the money to be able to gloat to your buddies that you had the winner, and they didn't. I mean, from a handicapping point of view, there's not a whole lot for me to say here. I only saw the 2 and the 8 misinterpret. Great to see the Glen Hill Farm Silks out there on the Saratoga racecourse for a stakes race, even if she was the only MTO. She's a really cool filly, and props to Starlight and Craig Burnick of Glen Hill for spotting her exactly right. You have anything clever here?
No. 8. Let's be clear. That was my only opinion. I thought the maiden score most recently was actually pretty good.
Yeah.
She kind of gave off the impression that maybe she'd be a horse that would stretch out.
Yeah.
She's also apparently in that most recent workout. Granted, it was on grass. Worked head and head with an older horse who's about a 90 buyer type on grass.
Well, that's going to make things hard on the rest of this field as they break and misinterpret a funny name, being asked for a little bit of pace there to keep her in the race. And interestingly, Sail By looks to be making the running as opposed to Let's Be Clear, who I thought would be clear, but pretty big hold on that one. Perrin is joining us again. Can I help you quickly?
We just randomly saw it do ding, and then we saw the gate release.
Oh, they're doing it. You're watching. We're right across
over
from the
here,
7 furlong shoot. So maybe they're testing the gate or something? Oh, no, was that the race was the 7 furlong race?
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
That's this race.
They just broke
running
right over here.
I forgot.
Yeah.
I confused myself there.
Because
Well, we're gonna see who wins here. You got a favorite number, Perrin? Who do you like? Who's gonna win it from here?
I don't know.
Well, Matt picked the 8, who's in a very nice position. Looks to have
plenty
plenty of horse left. I like
That might be a
Misinterpret. I like this Misinterpret, but she's getting scrubbed on pretty hard. She's gonna have to find a bunch on the outside. But she's
Selby's not quitting either.
Okay, now I like the 7.
You just like whoever one that's winning.
Exactly.
Come on with this Misinterpret down the center. Let's get these Glen Hill Farm Silks in the winning circle.
Why are there only 3 horses?
Well, there's a couple more in the race, but it's off the turf. I think Craig Bernick and Jack Wolf got their stakes win here.
They do.
At Saratoga. Claps to those
28.
boys. Claps to those boys. Yes, the 2 got it done. You picked the other 2, but not the right one. All right, we got to get back to past posting here at the Brentwood. Thanks to Parent. She's actually been pretty good.
Get her on Redboard Rewind.
She's made about 4 bets this meet, and 3 of them have won. So, usually she's pretty good with the pre-betting, but it's a little bit easier after the race, as, our buddy Chris Harm can tell you.
I won't name my buddy, but before the ABR show last week, I went and saw him, and he's in the backyard with his son. His son's, I think, 6. And I've never seen a 6-year-old snap and whoop as hard.
Come on, 6! Like a young Pete Rotundo.
Oh, my goodness. It was unbelievable. And, of course, I say 6. Whatever number Kitten by the Sea was in the 3rd race of the day or whatever it was, somebody can probably chime in. But I've never seen a little kid with a very similar hat to that on and his little bow tie just snapping. Come on, 6! It was fantastic. I don't know that I've ever rooted that hard. So it's been few and far between.
Well, it's good to see that we got to get this younger generation indoctrinated. That's for sure.
Now, when you go back and watch tape, the 7 never changes leads. I'm not saying that cost the 7 the race. Makes life a lot easier, though, when you've just been hanging on the left lead for the entirety of the turn and all the way the length of the stretch going 7/8 of a mile. Perhaps that's something that keeps that horse back, but also maybe something to keep in mind going forward. That if this one, we're talking about babies still, they're figuring things out. This was far from a disgraceful effort. I think you can improve on this with a little bit more maturation, start doing things correct with your mechanics. It's only beating, 2.5 lengths for all the money? Not even.
Maybe just 2.
So,
that's a good point, and especially looking at the lead changes with babies versus older horses or even 3-year-olds.
Yes.
I'm going to be a lot more inclined to be forgiving and say, okay, didn't change leads. That's greenness.
Mm-hmm.
That can be trained out of them. Also, it's going to depend what barn they're in.
Correct.
A barn that's harder on them, I'm going to be less forgiving. A barn that's more patient, I'm going to be super forgiving with things like lead changes when they're young. And then when they're older and you see them, they suddenly stop showing early speed or they suddenly stop changing leads, that usually means that condition arrow we talked about, straight down for me.
Go back to the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. I use this as an example from a few years ago. Dortmund, who he was also one who was notoriously had some bad feet. Not ideal. Very, very good when he was on his game. There was a workout prior to the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile that he changed extremely late. And I was still working at the Daily Racing Forum at that time. And I turned to Dan Illman, who is also a stickler just as much as I am about that stuff. I go, pull up the workout. And he goes, toss him. And sure enough, I think he finished off the board. It was one of those things that he had never done it before. So why all of a sudden now?
Yeah, it can just indicate some sort of nagging physical injury that hasn't manifested itself enough for the connection. Obviously, the connection is the horse has an injury, they're not going to run the horse. But there's subtle things you can see that show that's going to happen. I mean, Life is Good being another
from Donna last week.
Example. Right?
The way that she laid it out, that when she talked to Mike Smith saying, the getting out in that San Felipe, what was the cause of that? Well, it was something that hadn't quite reared its head just yet, but it was enough for you to and you know what? This week, perfect example, Fox Hill Farms. Royal Ship has run terribly in his last 2 races. Richard Mandela is somebody who knows what he's talking about. When they can't figure out why, unless maybe it is just genuinely the racetrack, then they send him to Dr. Larry Bramlage, and all of a sudden he's got the beginnings of something that could have gone wrong. He's going to get some time off. Usually they're telling you with their performances how they're feeling.
Yeah, it's a great point. And that's why looking at this minutia, while people who are just dyed in the wool, there's a big difference between saying, and horse players are bad at this, they'll mess this up for me. They're saying, I can't see that doesn't matter to me, or that that's ridiculous. It doesn't. Or the difference between that, the difference between I can't do it and it can't be done.
Correct.
That's it,
Correct.
It's. I'm not expressing this as articulately as I want to, but I think you know where I'm going with it. It doesn't matter to me, or it doesn't matter. They're two different things.
Correct. Yeah, I was going to say there's a camp. So the Gallup out folks.
Oh yeah.
There are people that just say it does not mean anything, and then there are other people that say, I get it, but I don't. It doesn't make a great difference to me, but I understand what you're trying to get at. There's a giant difference in the two. Yeah. It's just people that kind of get stuck into their ways, and that's fine. I maintain though that you need to be you need to understand where other people are coming from.
Yeah,
just in life in general. But from a handicapping standpoint, whether you agree with it or not, at least understand what they're laying out and why.
This is one of those. When did we stop talking about horse racing?
I know. I was going to say I shouldn't have even said it that way, but yes.
Great
exactly.
to see Karen Johnson in the winner's circle for her dad's race, handing out the trophy to Jack Wolf and the crew. Bernick didn't make it up to Saratoga. I don't know what better he had to do than get a trophy at Saratoga today, but he's wherever he is. I'm sure it's somewhere fabulous.
Yeah.
I sent him a nice boom text. Always good to hear from him. We had some other great comments here. John Gasper, back to that conversation we had before. Winning your way in allows you to play the tournament properly without scared money. I mean, that's exactly the point you were making.
Yeah, and I think it also affords you the opportunity. So I'll just, again, I brought up this example last year, the idea of I knew I didn't want to walk out of there at a key with less than $1,000. And I had not been able to connect a couple of doubles throughout the 2 days. It was what it was. But I had myself in a position where even if Authentic won the Classic, I'd still walk out of there with, $5,500 or whatever it was, far from the $10,000, but better than a stick in the eye.
Yeah.
And that's exactly how we played it. And I think at least it gives you, it is very difficult, and I'm sure you've interviewed folks who would echo this. It's difficult to separate points from dollars.
Yes.
Especially when the dollars are a much larger number than you're used to playing with.
That's a great segue back to the point I wanted to make. I do think there's a logic in live bankroll play to weighting that top spot or those top couple of spots more to make people more aggressive,
Sure.
To take those already aggressive players and give them, you got to give Jonathan and Marshall Graham a reason to push in 40,000, 80,000. I mean, Jonathan pushed in 40,000 and then 80,000. And it makes sense when the money's at the top. If it's flat, I'll bet half, in live bankroll play, let's face it, they're doing it to create churn.
Yeah.
So in those structures, I get it a lot more than in the mythical money.
With your history of following the event, this is just an observation. I don't know if there's any actual signal to it. Does it seem like the past few years the players have gotten more and more aggressive?
Definitely. I think the level of play is better.
Yeah.
You go back and you look at some of those early tournaments. I don't want to denigrate any specific players, but if you go back and look at the plays, like the level of play, the level of wager, the level of aggressiveness relative to the prize in terms of risk and reward, it wouldn't get it done today.
Yeah.
And, there are some players in the history of the event who've kind of fallen away, too, who had success earlier on. And now that it's just like such a Shark Tank. But as I say that, though, a great thing about the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge is there's so many different ways to play it. But I think the level of play to realistically win has gone from like a 6 to a 9.5, But there's still so many other ways to play. I think if you want to play in the NHC, which again we both really enjoy, there's, to me, getting to that through the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge makes a whole lot of sense. You can maybe go 3x your bankroll or whatever and get there. If you fire anyway at the windows, play within the context of the contest and have a chance to get extra prizes. And then, that whole idea that you were talking about before of you win your way in or you buy your way in, and then you play kind of like you were going to play anyway, but you have a chance to get hot and get up there. I mean, it pays down so far that it's still great to play in if you're not willing to go crazy and really push all in like that. But it's going to be very hard to win, I think, going forward if you're not capable of making, 5-figure multiple 5-figure wagers.
I remember vividly after day one, Edzo and I in the green room, we've got the big screen behind us, touch board, whatever. And when they flashed up the leaderboard, and the leader after day one had 120,000 or something like that, we both looked at each other. Neither of us had a good day on day one. We said, it's over. I mean, who's going to beat 120? And I think that person finished 4th or 5th because not only Marshall and Jonathan. It was, and I can't remember. I mean, and not to bash myself, but going back to, I finished 6th in 2014, 14, whenever 15, no, 14, yeah,
14. Was the first year? Was it the first year of the podcast?
Might have been, yeah.
I think the podcast started a couple of weeks after that.
I only had 39,000 in my bankroll. 39,000 at Keeneland last year might not have been enough to crack the top 15.
Yeah.
And I mean, it is what, and each year is going to be a little bit different, but I think especially someone like, I mean, you think about the way that Jonathan and Marshall got to the exacta that they did. It's not like they were betting on 100-to-1 shots. They were betting on rather logical horses, but there's something to be said. And I'll readily admit, I don't have that gear in me to sit there and say, betting $1,000 or was a Monomoy Girl at 8-5 or 7-5. It's just, but that's the mentality that it takes if you're going to go that route, as opposed to, I don't want to say hitting a lottery ticket, but really pressing up something with some prices underneath or even on top that, catapults you up the leaderboard.
It's the game within a game, right? Because you're getting, in the big picture of life, you're getting so much more than 8-5 on Monomoy Girl in that situation because of where it's going to put you. So you know what I mean? It's not really betting 40,000 on an 8-5. It's bet. I mean, there's probably a mathematical way to answer this.
Well, it's what we just talked about with Justin Musart.
Right.
The idea that 18-1 in front of you is actually
800.
Right. Something crazy.
Yeah. Great stuff. We have a few more comments to get to. John followed up. More willing to go broke when you win a satellite. If not, you're at a huge disadvantage of bigger money tournaments. Yes, we always say if that money. If you're worried about that money, you're bringing a knife to a gunfight. That usually doesn't work out too well, even if it's a very sharp knife. Howard's here. Hello, gentlemen. Is the bunker underwater? Crazy weather in NYC. Hope everything's okay. Looking forward to Matt being on his show next Thursday night, which is very cool. We are apparently very lucky. There was some water in the bunker, but I don't think it was high enough to touch the records or anything. It sounded just like a millimeter. It sounded like there was a leak as opposed to anything hideous. So
how was the neighborhood in general?
I think up where we live on a hill, which is where you wanted to be,
for sure.
Because the stories we were hearing from folks down in the Gowanus area, out towards Red Hook, it didn't sound good at all. Yeah. And I know a lot of even my childhood home out in Port Washington, they had the wet vac going today. Yeah. It was crazy, but I think fingers crossed, everything's all right. We had a neighbor go and check on it, and it felt like it should be okay. What I haven't seen this before. Somebody was blocked for 5 minutes. What is this? What is this saying? I don't know what that means.
Well, I'm guessing that's our friend who was giving us his tips. That he's.
Maybe if you put too many comments
may have overdone it.
Stick you in the penalty box.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're interested.
Don't have a problem hearing about your wagers. Yeah. But don't need to inundate the feed.
Better than that one day. You remember that one day somebody decided they were going to espouse their strange political views? No. Oh my God, yeah. It was. I just turned off the comments. I couldn't even look. And it wasn't like one party or another. I mean, it was just space aliens are going to come. It was really crazy. Oh, John Ball chimes in. Have me at Bagels. The 2-for-1 bloodies are a bonus. I think maybe we'll see John.
I was going to say, John sent me an email earlier this week. Said he will be here on Saturday.
Oh, that's fantastic. Because what we do, so we're in here. We don't. Maybe next year we'll get back to having the live audience, which would be fantastic. But this year we've been broadcasting out to the lovely patio. But then afterwards we go and hang out and shake hands, kiss babies, all that fun stuff. Yeah. Matt Chapman of USA, Pete Fornatale. I'm not sure how to feel about that, having worked with Mr. Chapman. No, Matt is he's something else, but he's an extremely popular presenter. So if you're comparing me to Chapman, I hope it's due to the charisma and not the sarcastic comments he makes about me when I'm on air with him.
I would take that as a positive.
I do think it's a compliment. I know, and the man's a legend in Ireland. Mr. Cookie Fortune, how can I watch Del Mar races? We talked about this before, Mr. Cookie Fortune, and I told you to email me, and I'll tell you some stuff that we can't say on these airwaves for political reasons. But basically, if you can have an ADW, if you're American and you live in an ADW state, which I guess that's a lot of ifs, it's very easy. Honestly, otherwise, TVG are an approved Breeders' Cup partner. We can talk about them.
Correct.
Del Mar on TVG.
Yep.
So you could get a TVG account. We can say that to you. But anyway, if you want more, contact me privately. Okay, Stu's coming back. Wow, look at that. Yeah. Only 200. See, I fell for it.
He had it.
I fell for it. So the correct number is half, I guess, is what you're saying, Stu. It is surprising that there aren't more, to me, honestly, given how chaotic some of those races are. But I guess $100 horse is really a lot. I wonder where you'd have to scale that number down to make my 2.5 right.
I was going to
60.
I was going to say, because then that leads me to believe that there are an immense number of horses between the $50 and the $100 range.
Yeah, I would. If you have that info, Stu, how many $50 winners? Because that's really interesting. But yeah, I fell for that sucker bet. I apologize.
I got a staple horse run on Sunday. I got to pull it up.
Yeah, who do we got?
It was.
This is a Kentucky Downs horse?
Yeah, coming back in Kentucky Downs. Let's see. Ooh, it's been a moment. Loading. Well, stand by. It's on its way.
We'll get it sorted out. And then we should do a quick look into these. We'll do a quick look into these stakes before we wrap things up. If folks have questions, I haven't thoroughly done the weekend racing yet, but if you have questions about these stakes races, we can answer those as we go through.
We have in one of the $1 million races. And again, I think something else that folks, if you are someone who goes through and takes trip notes, you also then need to go and actually look at the race that they're running in, because just because you have a beautiful trip note, if they're overmatched, it doesn't really matter.
Correct.
If they fit in there form-wise, not condition-wise, form-wise, I guess both. You need both really to run your best race. Then you can actually take advantage of it. Argentello. I had a trip from April the 15th coming back here, and I don't know if the horse has run since. I don't believe he has. On September the 6th in a $1 million mile event with BJ Hernandez up.
All right.
So we think we're pleased with the way the horse fits. I haven't looked at the race, to be honest. I just saw the email.
Okay, gotcha.
Again, a lot of Daniel Tiger. I haven't had a great deal of time.
So I had a good exchange with parents. So she was watching Daniel Tiger. What is she eating out there? It looks apparently eating an entire box of goldfish. We'll know why dinner.
That's how I eat my goldfish too.
Just pouring. But so yeah, she was into Daniel Tiger, and so Daniel Tiger, for those that don't know, the character was a creation of the great Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers.
And we said it as we're watching it. We go, it looks a lot like Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
Mm-hmm. It's like a spin-off more.
Oh, her head's going to explode when I tell her that.
So, and then when I told Perrin that her grandfather once interviewed Fred Rogers, her mind was blown. And I've been meaning to find that tape forever.
Really?
Yes, Fred was he did a lot of interesting media advocacy stuff.
Sure.
He basically single-handedly got the funding for PBS. And yeah, my dad had an opportunity to interview him at one point. And wise-ass kid that I was, my dad asked me if I had any questions for Mr. Rogers. And I said, yeah, ask him why he doesn't change his shoes before the show. it's like
he said, get out of here.
No, he actually had a thoughtful response. Man, it was much too nice to be dealing with a snot-nosed punk such as myself.
I'll tell you what, I just did a quick once-over of this Mint Million, okay, from Kentucky Downs on Monday, on Labor Day Monday. I don't think the horse is impossible, and he's 30-1.
I mean,
I don't think he's impossible.
That's a contest horse right there.
Yeah, I don't think he's impossible. I'm not saying he is the most likely winner by a long shot, but he's got some races that are every bit as fast as horses that'll be a fraction of the price.
Well, that's good to know. And there too, you can play a horse to hit the top 4.
And a trainer in Connor Murphy who has been known to blow up the top.
Yep, we've seen that before. We've seen that move before. Should we look at these grade ones on Saturday here at Saratoga, and maybe we'll do a quick little reset at the end and give them a little bit for social. But we already started talking about the Jockey Club Gold Cup, so maybe we'll start there. Do you it looked the 3 main contenders looked like the right horses to be on in this spot. Ultimately, I just couldn't pass up making a pick with Forza Dioro. I mean, here you got a runner in the right hands, ran such a great race on the clock and visually last time. And then, you look at the pace composition of this race, Timeform US gives it the old no speed. I thought there was a chance Forza Dioro could lead these on a merry chase.
Yeah, I agree. I tend to agree with that. I think Forza Dioro is, to me, the kind of horse where you go through and you look at the vast majority of this field. And I say vast majority, there's only 6 going. I think he still has a forward move in him. I'm not so convinced about everyone else in here. Max Player, I just need you to prove to me that you can forget about improve, replicate the Suburban, because to me that was still kind of an out of left field race. Granted, he wasn't slow as a 3-year-old, but that was, to me, far and away the best he'd ever run. You go through and look at Forewarned. I think he's too slow. Happy Saver, I'm not ready to give up on just yet. He could very easily have just hated a wet track. And if he gets back to a fast track, I think he's going to be much better suited. But at the price, comparing him to Forza Dioro, who showed much improved speed in that most recent start, he's paired up career buyer tops. I get it. They've been months separated. But one-on-ones, he's only run, 6 times overall? I think he can jump up into the mid to high 100 range. If he does that, not only is he a contender in the Breeders' Cup Classic, you can make a case that he's actually one of the horses to beat in the Classic. So I can't give you a pick 100%. If you want to know, it'll be over on NBCSN at 6 on Saturday. I'm leaning that direction, but I'm at least open to hearing cases for other horses. But I look at Forza Dioro, the runner-up. West Will Power came back and earned a 101 at Plymouth in the start. The third-place finisher earned a 92 at Remington Park in the next start. I mean, the form of that allowance race is strong. It's not as though he didn't beat anything. And he didn't. I just getting the engine warmed up. I think he's really tough to beat on Saturday.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that this is another – there's a couple horses in here that, you talk about condition cases for, Forza Dioro being one of them, that being the first race off a 235-day layoff in the hands of Bill Mott, landing in the target race, that Bill Mott with a target angle we've been talking about on these shows since about November of 2014. Max Player has a subtle condition angle that I like, which is that idea of a horse that runs faster than they ever have early and still finishes the race.
Yep.
That's impressive. I am not going to side with him here, but it's one of those that would be absolutely no surprise to see him do well. Happy Saver, I do think you can conjure excuses for the last 3 runs, really. Again, would not surprise me to see him step up, but at likely sub 2-1 odds. There's just not enough. There's just not enough there. I'd rather take a short number on Forza Dioro. Yeah, let's talk about Night Ops for a minute, because it seemed like you wanted to make a little case for him.
Well, and again, if we were talking about it from a class standpoint, he may be a little on the light side. This may be a bridge that he can't quite get over. But I thought he ran really well in a race that was relatively paceless in the grand scheme of things against Art Collector, who is another one that I glossed over when talking about those other speed types. I have no idea if Art Collector's actually this good. I'll tell you what, I thought he looked really good in the Charlestown Classic. He looked really good up here a few weeks ago, and now he's in Bill Mott's hands. I mean, this could be a fascinating Classic where you've got Mott with a couple of big charges, you've got Cox with a couple of big charges, and that's I just Night Ops. If you're someone who is just you just don't want to take a short price, maybe he doesn't go off at 5, maybe he goes off at 4-1. 7-2, somewhere in there as the third choice, I would think. I could see him, put it this way, I could see he and Max Player being very close. Yeah. Whether that's warranted or not, that's up to you as the handicapper. I can see them being very close. I think Happy Saver's the second choice. I think Forza Dioro is probably closer to even money than he is the 8-5 line.
And even would be a little bit short. Yeah. Just to bring it back home and reset it here for our friends at Breeders' Cup social media, we've got the Jockey Club Gold Cup on Saturday at Saratoga. This rescheduled. Grade 1, winning you're in for the Breeders' Cup Classic. I know, Matt, you're going to be on TV. You're going to be on NBC. You'll give your final thought there. For me, as long as he's above even money, this Forza Dioro is going to be very tough for me to spin. This is a race that does not have a lot of pace in it. I think he might be able to control things on the front end. Second off a long layoff in the hands of Bill Mott. I don't see how he can't move forward. Again, we'll leave you time for your final answer, but how do you see this one?
Yes, 6-7 NBCSN on Saturday night. This is the kind of race where you look at the majority of this field. I think they've kind of reached their peak. Forza Dioro, I'm not convinced of that. I think you could still see a forward move. He's only raced 6 times. He's paired up career bests, a 101. I don't love giving out chalk, and we'll see. Got to wait and see a couple of the things that come rolling through, but I think he's going to be very, very tough to beat.
PTF and Matt Bernier on the Jockey Club Gold Cup for Breeders' Cup social media and InTheMoneyPodcast.com. Let's talk about this Flower Bowl. You know what, Craig? We should make it our faces, because the cutout's going to look weird with the big picture of the Saratoga race from a few days ago up there. If you don't mind, if you two-box us, we'll wait till you can two-box us, and then we'll do.
I think my camera crapped out for a minute too. Anyway.
Okay, well that's all right. We can definitely. We'll be all right. Yeah, we'll be all right. We'll make it work. Maybe they'll only want to go with this one, but we'll do it right now. Talking about the Grade 1 Flower Bowl. This is winning. You're in action for the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf, a 1 3/8 at Saratoga on Saturday afternoon. This is a race where you've got a heavy favorite in Warlike Goddess, but by my reckoning, Matt, she doesn't have that big an edge on the rest of this field. How are you seeing this one?
I think she needs to prove it against a field of this caliber, and these aren't even the best of the best, I think, as far as the girls are concerned in the longer distance grass races. She deserves to be the favorite. I don't know that she deserves to be 3 to 5 or 4 to 5 in the big picture. Whenever Chad has a few in here, I think you have to take it, make a note of that. La Signori, I like her a lot. I think she's very talented. I can't help but notice this is the first time Brennan Walsh is willing to stretch her way out to a 1 3/8. She's always been campaigning those mile to 1 1/8. Occasionally they tried a 1 1/4. I wonder if that has more to do with the fillies and mares at that 1 to 1 1/8 range that she just can't run with. And maybe now she can stretch it out against maybe slightly subpar company. I was intrigued by, and this is going to be the one that I'll kind of lean on you for, American Bridge in here for Jean-Claude Rouget. I assume, based on some of the things I've read, that this one may stay here with Chad, and given Peter Brandt's name as the owner, I don't know what she beat over at San Siro in Italy, but she was the only one who made up any ground, and she drew off. And Irad taking them out here makes me think she can run a little bit. This is an ambitious placement to run her right into a Group 1 or a Grade 1 here in the States. I think that's fascinating. I can't get past my girl, Great Island. I think she's much better maybe than the paper would suggest. She's not the fastest on figs. She has a legitimate turn of foot. I think she was best in the Gallarette. That was the day that Mean Mary walked on the front end. She came back in the matchmaker. She really had no business winning that race, if not for kicking home the way that she did. 23-1, 23-2, 11-2 for her final fractions. Maybe this is a little bit too much for her, but I think from a price standpoint, she may have a big chance in here at what might be an appetizing price.
You're talking about a lot of runners at prices who make sense. I mean, American Bridge, we've certainly seen this movie before. And you also know that if the name was Chad Brown on the PP, which it almost might as well be. I mean, of course, has been in his care, but, he's certainly, going out basically under his auspices as much as anything else. At a big price, if that morning line price is correct, I would definitely be keeping on side. I do think it might be more likely that the Equine Edge program that guesses the morning lines makes their own. Their 6-1 sounds probably more realistic to me, and at that, I think it would just be the price. I can see the Great Island case. I would want, again, more than the 4-1 of the morning line. Warlike Goddess, very, very likely, going for the graded stakes 4-peat. Has shown that she can win without a great setup before, but I just kept coming back to La Signora on the pace angle here as much as anything else, hoping they're just going to send. This is one that doesn't have to want to go this far. So that's a fear.
Yep.
But I mean, if we're looking at 5-1 versus 4-5, or even 4-1 versus 4-5 on Warlike Goddess, I like the idea of keeping your prices potentially in the mix. But La Signora is the one I think I want to focus on.
There's still some things I need to take a look at. I'd be willing to bet that American Bridge is either the second or third choice in this race. I bet she comes down significantly, especially if some word starts to trickle out a little bit about, Irad's here. Clearly, she's going to end up staying here in the States. Maybe this is, again, I just can't get past the fact that I don't know what she ran against in that race over in Italy, but she was the only horse who did any running from the back of the pack. The second and third place finishers were 1-2 throughout, and this filly rolled over them. And they come back and they've run okay. The second place finisher ran third in a race in Munich in Germany. Again, the German and Italian form, you can correct me if I'm wrong, typically it's a cut below
it ain't great. Especially Italy.
The English and the Irish, the French form especially, it's definitely a notch below. And then the third place finisher won next out at a track called Murano. I don't know what you beat there. Having said that, we have seen what I interpret as lesser come over here and have success.
That's right. Turf form shipping west. How many times did we talk about it? We got to give a word on My Sister Nap before we button this up and then move to our last race at Saratoga.
I think she's a really talented mare. I mean, I feel like she's been exposed against this caliber of runner. If it was a little bit softer, perhaps she could take advantage. I think it is a positive that they're here, and maybe second off the bench, she can take a step forward. She did move first in that race that Warlike Goddess won last out. That was her first start off with a bit of a layoff. Perhaps she can improve. The part of me thinks she's not low.
Let's button this one up. The Flower Bowl, winning you're in action for the Breeders' Cup, filly and mare turf. I'm going to go with La Signare on the pace angle here. There are questions in terms of her ability to get the distance, but I trust Brendan Walsh to have her as ready as possible, and there's just not a lot of speed in here. On figures, I think she fits. She could have a tactical edge, and most importantly, I think she's going to be a square price. I'm not sure if you're ready to release your final selection in this race. It will be on NBC, and folks can get it there. But who do you see as the main contenders?
Yeah, I was going to say, I'll do the full reveal, 6 to 7 on NBCSN on Saturday night. I think Great Island for Chad is a little sneaky in here. On Fig, she's a little slow, but I think the last 2 or 3 runs are considerably better than the paper would suggest. She may be one that you can kind of take advantage of. Maybe she slips through the cracks a little bit.
All right, PTF and Matt Bernier, Horseplayer Happy Hour for the Breeders' Cup, and InTheMoneyPodcast.com. We've got 2 minutes to this final race in our contest. How's it looking at the top of the leaderboard here? I'm curious to get maybe one more look at that. I've got it on the screen here, if Craig doesn't pop it up. Looks like Matt Vagvolgi still in great shape. Steve Dudnoff currently in that second exacta spot, and it looks like the cutoff right now, David Browning sitting in that cutoff seat to make it to play on Saturday for the qualifier. He's got the 5 in this spot at 4-1. Our top 2 players both have the 7 at 8-1. Who do you see winning this, Matt?
This is going to sound probably like a crazy idea because she's 0 for 15 lifetime. I thought Boom Boom Kaboom had a chance.
Love that name.
Blinkers on, and don't hold the main track form against her. 3 of her first 4 starts came on the main track. That was late as a 2-year-old, early as a 3-year-old. Just draw a line through that. Yes, she hasn't been able to get the job done, but according to the DRF Clocker report, that most recent blowout with the blinkers on, she actually looked much better than she typically does. I can't help but think there's some signal here at 4-1 for a horse who's never won in 15 starts. I wanted to give her a look.
I'll tell you this, the horse that I liked, I was thinking was going to be 6-1, and it's currently the 2-1 favorite, Hot Doctor, who I thought you go back and you look at that first race ever. It was the only dirt race. I just thought it was a much better than it looked kind of effort. Off slow, made a middle move into a hot pace, just ran okay, then running on turf, getting back onto the dirt. But I got to say 2-1 is just a little too skinny. Makes me want to get clever somewhere else. I'm going to take another look and grind and see if I can find us a price in here.
Yeah, I kind of going through this on the fly. I don't know that there was anybody that really, got the juices flowing. I will tell you, there's a horse on the outside that I wouldn't totally dismiss. That's Tim Bro's Socks. The most recent start, first time stretching out to 2 turns, middle move into the hottest part of the pace on grass, albeit. Now to go back to the main track, shortening up some. I don't know. To me, I talk about that interior fraction a lot. That to me, there is some signal there. If you can start to pick up running then, it makes me think that you might have a little bit of quality. And again, you don't have to be a superstar to win. What is this, Maiden 40, New York bred? You don't have to be a superstar here. She may be too far back. That would be my big concern. But at 10-1, if you're not sold on a horse like Boom Boom Kaboom or a horse like Hot Doctor at 2 and 4-1 respectively, maybe something like that.
I don't hate iGen at 6-1 in this spot. It's just a guess.
Yep.
But in a race where you see how the market's just reaching to make horses, you went over 15 at 4-1, and you've got my supposed to be 6-1 and 2-1. Just tells me maybe it's the right spot for a stranger. Let's see. Going to need to break from down there at the inside, and Rosario's trying to get position, but it doesn't look like the trip is going to work out. Going to need to be ridden for luck from there. And we've got a nice Game of Thrones name course up there, Sandor Clegane. And then how about this nice trip that On Our Way Boys is getting? This isn't one we talked about ahead of time, but gee, there's a shock. Luis Saez with his horse in a good spot in a race at Saratoga.
Yeah, tell me about it. And there's a horse looping up on the outside. Is that the 9 right now?
Bo Brown, I think that is making a move, but covered up by the horse on the outside. Who's that? That the 10? I'm blaming you.
Oh, I wish this 5 could find a seam because I think there's some run here.
This is the rail parting like
Ricardo
the Red Sea for Sandover.
I would tip out right here, Ricardo. I don't know if
He's
you
in
can.
a tough spot.
Yeah, she's
gonna
not
go
kicking,
for this. Gonna go for the split, but it looks like a bird has flown.
Yeah.
Saez again with this on our way, boys. Last price I saw was 7-1, and this one
down to 9-2, I think.
Okay, had shown some speed last time. I mean, not super exciting or sexy, but you know,
gets the job done.
Yeah, gets exactly against the suspect group. You know, no surprise, best trip this level. You get a great break like that, just get in good position and finishes past him. Ooh, Stu has chimed in with some interesting info here. Let's see. Tom. PTF giving Mr. Rogers a hard time. That's like kicking up on me. I'm not proud, but I was like 13, so you know I was obnoxious. What can I say? Carla, greetings from Vancouver, Washington. Greetings right back at you. Okay, from 23, 83% of the winners paid from 0 to 1980, 11% 20 to 39.80, 2.4 40 to 60, and then 1.3 60 to 80. So I mean, you know what you'd and then another one, 0.5% with the 80 to 98, and then wait, that so the 0.8, that one horse that was 100 plus. I'm not sure how this math is working. It's beyond me, Stu. But I mean, it doesn't seem like the radical price distribution that I would have guessed.
Yeah, agreed. I think that's the thing that I feel like I've seen enough Kentucky Downs over the past handful of years where it feels like there's just price after price after price. The one thing I did also mention on my pod earlier this week about Kentucky Downs, FanDuel meet at Kentucky Downs, that don't just go into this weekend thinking, okay, we're playing these races and whatever happens, happens. Remember back to last year, the horses coming out of Kentucky Downs that went to Keeneland, they all ran extremely well. And I can't help but think it's purely from a fitness standpoint. It's the only all-European turf course here in the United States. Going back to call it the flat, and I don't care what distance it is, you got to have stamina for days at that point. It feels like this is just a walk in the park.
Galloping, hill finish. I mean, there's so many things there that are going to move a horse forward. The same reasons we tend to like horses coming from like Fair Hill. Yeah, you know, you can get them real fit when they're doing something other than just running around the same circle all the time. 100%. Seems to be something that we've seen, and one of the reasons why, you know, horses prepping at a meet like Kentucky Downs, I think, do so well. And it's also just a very high class of racing. So if you can compete there and go on to Keeneland, you've probably done something right. All right, just wait. We'll do our leaderboard and we'll wrap it up. I think our business is complete. If you've got any last minute questions for us here in the comments, yes, TBG is the answer to the Del Mar question for Mr. Cookie. Hopefully he can get that situation figured out. Saya's in the winner's circle there with On Our Way Boys, his second winner of the day. That's a quiet day for him.
I was going to say, and not that I'm rooting for anyone to win anything, but he thoroughly deserves to win the riding title. If he doesn't, whoever ends up winning will certainly will. But I mean, the way that he has gone about things, I think he deserves a giant round of applause.
Yeah, these horses seem to always be in the right position. He seems to have taken another step up at this meet. It's been fun to watch and some really memorable rides. I mean, to me, that Essential Quality ride was not simple.
No, we didn't even really talk about last week as far outside of the Jackie's Warrior and Life is Good race. I mean, Essential Quality, all he did to me was prove and continue to show that he's got the heart of the champion, that he wants to win. And I don't mean this to sound callous. If Midnight Bourbon couldn't beat him last Saturday, he's not going to beat him.
Yeah, he's not.
He's just not.
He did everything his own way. And Essential Quality, he's a good horse, and I think it was an improved effort. I think it's a mistake to downgrade Essential Quality and say, oh, he only barely beat Midnight Bourbon. I think Midnight Bourbon stepped up in a big way, but I still don't think it was enough for that horse who just wants to get down in his belly and run through the lane. All right, here we go. Matt Vagvolgi will be playing for the extra $10,000 seat in our playoffs, as will Don Diller, who gets up there with that winner of the last race. Don Marquardt, too, ekes it out there with On Our Way Boys. Stephen Dudenoff gets bumped out of the exacta, but still nice tour points for him and an opportunity to go on to play on Saturday. Terry Crump, Scott McGovern, Ken Kasewich, Bruce Meyer, more tour points for him. Sean O'Malley, Thomas Nanny, Douglas Cruz, Dennis Madsen, Mark Wodlowski, and Jack Fricano in that 14th and I believe final spot with Todd Van Dree, I believe being the unlucky of the bubble person.
The bubble boy.
The bubble boy, as it were. Any closing thoughts from you, Matt, or should we just do this all again on Saturday from this?
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm looking forward to coming on Saturday. Look, we love these happy hours. If you still have not gotten involved or you've only been sort of a sporadic participant, get involved. We still have a few weeks left as far as the regular season is concerned. But yeah, Saturday morning, I think it should be a good time. It looks like the weather's supposed to cooperate, and there were also 2 other graded stakes races on Saturday.
Yes.
We talked about the Grade 1 win and you're in races for the Breeders' Cup, but it's a big day here, and I said it last week. I got some side eye. This time of year up here, I love it, but I hate it at the same time.
It's bittersweet.
Because I know we're at the end, and I know the leaves are getting ready to turn different color.
They're on the ground in the back. The apple tree gave them up already,
and that's a little depressing for me.
But from a Breeders' Cup perspective,
for sure,
it starts in earnest when we get out of here. So I allow myself like 3 days to sulk, 2.5 to 3 days to sulk, and then it's okay. Time to start writing.
12 hours for a tier, and then get to the replays. That's it. That's it for me.
Some key dates: 3 more weeks of Horseplayer Happy Hour. So game 21, 22. I don't know how I did this. I forgot a number. Oh, this is too funny. I got to make sure. I got to see what I did here. But I went from game 22 to game 24. But I'm pretty sure that the last week of the regular season is going to be September 24th. That's going to be game 23. So that's funny. That means it's going to be 46 people qualifying through the exacta.
Okay.
And then the rest of our 80 will come from the tour. Then the playoffs start the week of whatever week the Thursday of October 1 is. I don't have it here in front of me. But we're going to have 3 weeks of those playoffs and get to the final table. And my hope is that we'll do a proper qualifier for the BCBC alongside. So I think that's going to be a blast. I think it's going to be really fun to watch that tournament play out. We'll have a bunch of extra things to cover. And then the final table is going to be I think it's going to be a hoot.
It's going to be chaos.
Yeah.
in the best way possible.
Yeah, we got to figure out how the heck we're actually even going to do it. We're going to need JK for that one. We'll make sure he's not working on Fox that day. All right, let's get out of here. So, for Matt Bernier, for our friends at the Brentwood, especially Michaela, making delicious drinks today. For my unexpected babysitter, Jenna, that was wonderful. For Perrin, who very good at picking the winner after the race. Our friends at the Breeders' Cup, especially Justin McDonald and Haley Amos, have been so much fun to work with throughout this whole thing. Most of all, thanks to all of you for watching, and especially those of you who made comments. This show has been a production of the Breeders' Cup and In the Money Media. Our business manager on the In the Money side is Drew Coatney. Our chief creative officer is that guy, Jonathan Kitchen. I'm Peter Thomas Fornatow. May you win all your photos.